the early hours of May 3, 1982, the South Atlantic, roughly 60 nautical miles north of the Falkland Islands. It is dark, it is freezing, and the sea state is the kind that makes small ships miserable. An 800-ton Argentine ocean-going tug named Ara Alferez Sobral is out there searching for the crew of a Canberra bomber shot down 2 days earlier. She is not a warship in any meaningful sense. She is a rescue vessel with a gun on her. A British Sea King spots her. She fires a short burst at it, and the helicopter withdraws and calls it in. What happens over the next 20 minutes is one of the first operational uses of a weapon that had never been fired in anger before, and it will establish a reputation that lasts until the missile is finally retired 35 years later. To understand why that weapon existed, you have to go back to a single afternoon in 1967 that terrified every navy in the Western world. On October 21, 1967, the Israeli destroyer Eilat, formerly the Royal Navy's HMS Zealous, was sunk off the Sinai coast by anti-ship missiles fired from Egyptian Coma-class fast attack craft. The significance was not the loss of one destroyer. It was the arithmetic. A small, cheap boat, displacing a tiny fraction of its target, had destroyed a full-sized warship from over the horizon. That single event rewrote naval threat assessment. Suddenly, every navy had to assume that any coastline anywhere could be defended by swarms of missile-armed fast attack craft that cost almost nothing to build and could kill capital ships. The Royal Navy needed an answer. What it needed specifically was a way to destroy or disable a missile-armed fast attack craft before that craft got within its own firing range. Warship guns could not reliably do it at distance in poor visibility. Larger anti-ship missiles like the Exocet were expensive and enormously overpowered for a target of a few hundred tons. The answer chosen was a system rather than a weapon, a helicopter, a radar, and a small missile working together. The helicopter was the Westland Lynx. The radar was the Ferranti Sea Spray. The missile was developed by the British Aircraft Corporation from May 1972 and became the Sea Skua. Now, before we get to what happened in the South Atlantic, if you are enjoying this deep dive into military engineering, hit subscribe. It takes a second, costs nothing, and helps this channel keep making these. The engineering logic behind the Sea Skua is a study in deliberate restraint. The missile is small. It weighs roughly 145 kilograms, is about 2.5 meters long, and carries a semi-armor-piercing warhead of around 30 kilograms containing about 9 kilograms of high explosive. For comparison, an Exocet carries a warhead of around 165 kilograms. The Sea Skua's warhead is a fraction of that. That was not a compromise forced by budget. It was the specification. The target was not a cruiser. It was a fast attack craft or a patrol boat, and against a target that size, a heavy warhead is wasted mass. What matters instead is that the launching helicopter can carry 4 of them rather than 1, and can engage multiple boats in a single sortie. Guidance is semi-active radar homing, which means the missile does not carry its own transmitter. The Lynx's sea spray radar illuminates the target, and the missile homes on the reflected energy. That keeps the missile cheap and small, at the cost of requiring the helicopter to keep the target illuminated during the engagement. The flight profile was the clever part. The Sea Skua is a sea skimmer, flying at low radar altimeter-controlled heights above the wave tops so that the target's own radar has minimal warning. Range is around 25 kilometers, comfortably outside the reach of a fast attack craft's guns and short-range weapons. Speed is supersonic. The fuse is an impact fuse with delayed detonation, designed so that the warhead penetrates the hull before exploding rather than detonating on the skin. The pairing with the Lynx was equally deliberate. A helicopter operating from a frigate or destroyer can be launched in minutes, can search a wide area, and can position itself where the parent ship cannot go. Crucially, it can look over the horizon. A warship's own radar is limited by the curvature of the Earth and the height of its mast. A helicopter at altitude sees far further, which means it can find and engage a target long before that target's own sensors can find the ship the helicopter came from. That combination inverted the tactical problem the Eilat sinking had created. Instead of a small boat ambushing a large ship from beyond visual range, a large ship's helicopter could now ambush the small boat from beyond its range, using a weapon sized precisely for the job. By 1982, the missile had been through development and testing, but had never been used in combat. It was, in the phrase used at the time, the first missile system developed specifically for the Royal Navy's fleet air arm. Then, Argentina invaded the Falkland Islands, and a task force sailed south with Sea Skua armed lynxes aboard, carrying a weapon whose real-world performance nobody could be certain of. Back to the small hours of May 3rd, the Type 42 destroyers HMS Coventry and HMS Glasgow both launched their Lynx helicopters against the contact. They attacked separately, 20 minutes apart. Coventry's Lynx XZ-242 went in first and fired 2 Sea Skuas. One narrowly missed the bridge. The second struck the vessel's fiberglass motorboat, injuring the crew of an Oerlikon cannon and destroying the ship's radio aerials. 20 minutes later, Glasgow's Lynx XZ-247 launched 2 more missiles. At least one struck the bridge directly, causing extensive damage. Accounts of the total number of hits vary between sources, with some describing 3 Sea Skua hits contributing to the damage inflicted. What is not in dispute is the outcome. The attack killed 8 of the crew, including the ship's captain, Lieutenant Commander Sergio Gomez Roca, and injured 8 more. The Alferez Sobral lost all electrical power, her radio, her radar, and her compass. She was left with no functioning navigational equipment other than a landing compass entirely unsuited to sailing a ship. She was located and assisted by a civilian Sikorsky S-61N helicopter that had been requisitioned by the Argentine Air Force, and she eventually limped back to port over the following days. She survived. She was also out of the war. Consider what that means as an engineering result. A weapon with a warhead 1/5 the size of an Exocet, fired from a helicopter rather than a warship or a strike aircraft, had comprehensively disabled a vessel without sinking her outright. Every system that made the ship useful was destroyed. That is precisely the design intent. Disable the platform, not necessarily sink it. Over the course of the Falklands campaign, 9 Sea Skuas were fired and 7 registered hits. Those hits helped sink the already abandoned Argentine cargo vessel Rio Carcarana and damaged the patrol craft Rio Iguazu, in addition to the Alferez Sobral. A hit rate of roughly 78% on a weapon's combat debut in South Atlantic winter weather is a remarkable figure by any standard. It is worth comparing that against the other light anti-ship weapon in British hands during the same campaign. The French-built AS-12, fired from Westland Wasp helicopters, was used against the Argentine submarine ARA Santa Fe on April 25, 1982. 9 missiles were fired at a submarine trapped on the surface. 4 hit, 4 missed, and 1 failed to launch. 2 of the missiles that did hit failed to detonate on impact, punching straight through the slender conning tower and exploding on the far side. That is what the previous generation of light anti-ship missile looked like in practice against a nearly stationary target. The contrast explains why the Sea Skua's performance drew so much attention. The weapon's real vindication came 9 years later, in a very different sea. During the 1991 Gulf War, Royal Navy Lynx helicopters operating from destroyers and frigates in the northern Persian Gulf used Sea Skua against Iraqi naval vessels. Accounts vary slightly in their totals, but the picture is consistent. Over a period of days, a small number of Lynx helicopters sank or disabled somewhere in the region of 14 to 15 Iraqi patrol craft, fast attack craft, minesweepers and landing craft, engaging from around 5 miles out. That is close to the complete destruction of an opponent's coastal naval capability by a handful of helicopters carrying a missile that weighs less than 2 adult men. The Gulf engagements also validated the design assumption that the Falklands had only hinted at. In the Northern Gulf, the targets were exactly the class of vessel the Sea Skua had been conceived to kill in the years after the Eilat sinking. Small, fast, missile-capable craft operating close to a defended shoreline. The weapon had been designed against a hypothetical Soviet-supplied fast attack craft in the 1970s, and nearly 2 decades later, it met something very close to that hypothetical and performed as advertised. There is a broader point in that. Weapons programs are usually judged on whether they meet their specification in testing. The far harder test is whether the specification itself was correct, and that question can only be answered years later, in a war nobody predicted, against an enemy nobody had in mind. The Sea Skua passed both. The Sea Skua stayed in Royal Navy service until 2017. Its replacement, Sea Venom, was substantially delayed, with full operating capability not expected until well into the following decade. Variants of the original missile were exported and adapted, including a ship-launched demonstration in 1990 that proved the weapon could be fired and guided from a small fast attack craft, and proposals for a shore-based coastal defense version. The early hours of May 3, 1982. A tug in the freezing dark, searching for a downed bomber crew, with no idea that 2 helicopters are working their way toward her from over the horizon, or that the weapons they carry have never been used in war. 4 missiles go into the night, each carrying a warhead smaller than a large suitcase, guided by radar energy bouncing off a ship that cannot see them coming. 20 minutes later, the ship is still afloat, and completely blind, deaf, and powerless. The Sea Skua was never the most powerful anti-ship weapon of its era. It was never meant to be. It was designed on the understanding that the object of the exercise is not to produce the largest explosion available, but to remove a specific threat from the board using the smallest weapon that will reliably do it. That is not spectacle. That is what precision actually means. And in the South Atlantic in 1982, it worked the first time it was asked to.